My parents were dead to me after they told me to just bury my brother's essay, so I went NC and fled the country, but I just found her emails buried in my spam mail and I feel bad for not reviving our relationship. Long story short, I 22F, fled across the country from my family last December, about a week before Christmas. I left because my brother, 32M, is an offender, and I was his victim when from the ages of 12 to 16. I have other posts going more in-depth, but my parents, 60F, and 66M, are hardcore African Pentecostal Christians. This means they believe in praying in tongues, being filled with the Holy Spirit, collapsing on the floor, and seeing visions. My parents are both pastors and own their own church. I was 17 when it all came out about what my brother had done to me. My parents' reaction was to bury everything, force me to forgive my brother, and keep the church's reputation intact. My dad said he never understood family secrets until then, and both my parents said I should never tell anyone about what happened to me. They let my brother move back into the basement and continue living with us for years. During and after all of that, I felt like I was dying inside. Living in that house felt like hell on earth, and I was struggling mentally. I went from graduating high school with a 4.1 to dropping out of college with a 2.3. I stopped attending all my classes and responding to people, and it was getting really dark for me. So in December, my boyfriend 21M, and I decided that I had nothing to lose by packing a suitcase, taking my important documents, and flying across the country to live with his family. I sent my parents a super long email, detailing why I left and renouncing religion. I blocked their numbers and emails, and I haven't spoken to anyone in my family for the last 8 months. Recently, I've gotten emails from my mom that I noticed while checking my spam folder, and my boyfriend has gotten voicemails from my dad. He has like 4 different numbers, and we forgot to block all of them. The emails has been making me feel extremely guilty for just up and leaving my parents. My mom tells me in all of the emails about how she cries herself to sleep every night because I was her only daughter and prays I'll come home. And despite everything, she's still the woman who sacrificed a lot to raise me for 21 years, and it hurts me to know I'm actively hurting her like this. Most people with immigrant parents know how hard it is to form an open and trusting relationship with them. And even if they didn't support me mentally and emotionally, they supported me financially for 21 years, and I feel extremely selfish about never speaking to them again. It still hurts a lot 8 months later, and I'm starting to wonder if I really did make the right choice. Edit. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for the overwhelming support. I did not think this many people would read my post or care enough to leave a comment. So thank you all so much. Secondly, I see a lot of people telling me I need to go to the police and open up a case against my brother. I did that when I was 17. My parents begged me to stop talking to the detectives. They told me that the police were never on my side, and they were looking for reasons to put me away as well. They said my dad's reputation would be ruined, and they wouldn't have a church anymore. So, I refused to talk to the detectives anymore because I didn't want to destroy my family's livelihood. I have another brother who is severely disabled, and I was really worried about how they would afford to take care of him without the church. A few weeks later, when my brother got the call that the case was dropped, he came into the church singing and yelling his testimony that the devil sent demons to try to put my brother away, but God defeated them and he's free. He intentionally kept it pretty vague in front of the congregation. My dad promised me that he would never let my brother spend another night in the house again. A year later, they moved him back into the basement, and that's when I started spiraling. So, now that I'm across the country, finding the detective to reopen the case might be difficult, but I think there's a picture of her contact card somewhere in my Google Photos I need to dig up and give a ring. Update. So, a few days before Christmas, my mother randomly showed up at my boyfriend's family's front doorstep. She traveled across the entire country to find me unannounced. I had no idea she was coming and was very blindsided by everything. She asked to speak with me, and I was really hoping that things had changed, so I agreed to listen to her. We sat on chairs in the front lawn. She asked me if I was okay, and she started telling me how happy she was to see me. She said that she and my father had been in and out of the hospital with worry and stress about me. She also said that she was sorry for the things she did not know and things that were done out of ignorance. After all of that, she asked me if I wanted to talk to my disabled brother, and I really missed him, so she called my father, 66M. He began to tell me how he was finally going to sleep for the first night since I left the house now that he got to see my face. He also repeated most of the things my mother said, almost word for word. Things like apologizing for what he didn't know was happening. He also said, "Find it in your heart to forgive us just as we have." He trailed off there, and that line was literally a wake-up call because at that point, I had been crying and feeling so guilty for what I've been putting my elderly parents through. But that line made me pause because what in the world does he possibly have to forgive me for? What did I do to him? Flee for my safety? I think my mother noticed my change in demeanor because she ended the call with him pretty soon after and asked to take me out to eat. I brought my boyfriend with us so I wouldn't be driven to an airport instead. We went to a local restaurant, and the silence during our meal was palpable. Until my boyfriend went to the bathroom. My mother then began grilling me on where I work, what I am doing with my future, and if I am going back to college. She asked me if I was thinking about going back to our home state to finish college, and I told her I was not leaving with her under any circumstances. I noticed that throughout all the questions she asked me since she arrived at our doorstep, she never truly asked me how I was doing. She didn't ask if I had a bed to sleep on, food to eat, means of transportation, or even money in my bank account. I never told her that my food stamps was halted for the month of December because I missed one letter, so I had to wait for halfway through January to get a recertification appointment. She probably would have been appalled I was taking government handouts anyway. I never told her that I am working $1 above minimum wage job, that I really love actually, to save $3,000 to pay my old university to release my transcripts. But even if she offered to help, it most likely would have had heavy strings attached. After we left the restaurant, she tried asking me for my phone number. I told her that I have a new Google Voice number after the one my father used to pay for was turned off. She was apparently under the impression that he was still paying for the phone. So she called him again, and when asked about the old phone plan, he stuttered heavily before saying that he was still paying for it and had no idea what happened. When my mother tried to tell him that he needs to investigate, he told her that she should stop worrying about that and offered to buy me a new phone plan. I declined because I did not want my parents to be able to hold anything over my head. He then went on to start lecturing me about finishing college, and how whatever anybody has said about my parents is not true. He even managed to very quickly drop in a "well, you said you don't believe in God anymore, but anyways." I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reply. After getting off the phone with my father, my mother asked if I wanted to spend the night at her hotel room because she missed me so much. I also declined that, and she dropped us off at the house. A few days after she left, I received a Christmas card and a $50 gift card from her in the mail. I guess the point of my update is to ask if I'm still doing the right thing. I mostly feel really guilty about my mother because she's old, she believes and does whatever my father says, and I think my father's pride about power and reputation makes him a really shitty person. I also know for a fact that they are still in contact with and working with my rapist brother, so I know that I really shouldn't give a shit about them either. But my heart hurts, and I am really confused. I appreciate all advice. Thank you for reading.